Do you have something that's a little bit more head on?
I can bring the camera down. You can
Yeah.
pull it to wherever you want to pull it. You want it direct? You want it up or above?
I wish it was like maybe.
Yeah, hold on.
Can we suspend it so it's like about here?
You can make that easy. I do have a tripod. It's in the basement. I'm not trying to fuck this right now.
All right.
Hold on.
Whew.
Let's get the angle you want. I'm going to get a better camera one day. Just not today. You want to be center? Do you want left center?
No, center.
Do you want LED lights? You want these lights off? It's a different vibe when the lights are off. See, it creates a different shadow.
So I've never done a YouTube live stream. Yeah. What'd you say?
Nothing.
I've done, I get on other people's streams. I should have shaved. Look at that. Catch us those details.
Can you hear yourself?
No, I cannot. Okay, hello. Yeah, I can hear myself now. All right. Let's have a quick conversation about masculine frame. Right? Love to be able to talk with you guys about that. It looks like we're gonna wait for a couple of people to get into the room. Yeah. Let's see here. All right. Hey, what's up? If you come into the room, say what's up. Shoot a message. Let me know you're here. I want us to have a conversation about masculine frame. Yeah, I've been writing about this for some time, and I've talked to men about this over time, over and over again. It's something that I don't think most men understand, that there's a line in the sand, a basic standard as men that we should be meeting, that is like intrinsic to the floor of manhood, so that you're standing on planet manhood. And oftentimes, you have women who are telling you, hey, this is what a real man is. This is what a real man does. And most of us really, what we find or what we hear to be what a real man is something that has been told to us by a whole bunch of women who have never in their lives had to deal with the expectations that society has of men, or that men have of one another, were that appropriate standards that we should have for ourselves when we're approaching our lives. And so I wanted to have a conversation about that. And what inspired it actually is, I'm out of town right now. I'm over to a buddy of mine's house, and he's got this set up, and him and I were driving around and we were talking. And, he's taking on quite a bit of responsibility right now, because he's picking up these 2 extra kids that are going to be living in his house. And these 2 extra kids that are going to be living in his house are the children of another man. This is his brother-in-law. And, I explained to him, what type of conversation he should have with his brother-in-law, and we began to talk about, masculine frame. And then I went into the concepts that I've developed around masculine frame that have helped to guide me and help me to be able to be consistent and, accomplish some of the things that I've accomplished. And it acts as a lens through which I've learned to see the world, that's, kept me out of trouble and kept me on a path moving forward in a meaningful way. And so I wanted to share those ideas with you guys. I'm open to this being conversational. I am going to be going over some concepts that are really important and intrinsic to masculine frame. And so if anybody wants to engage through the chat, then I'm happy to take any questions directly that you all have. But essentially, there's three primary components that make up masculine frame. Okay, and these three components are very simple. The first one is the most basic one. Okay, and this is every single man on the planet is responsible for his own safety. This is something that's very important, and it leads into a much deeper conversation. But essentially what you need to get from it is this: nobody is coming to save you. Nobody, ever. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to help you with your problems. Nobody's coming to fix your ailments or your illnesses. Nobody's coming to get you off the street. We have all seen people, they're sitting up there begging on the street. What we don't see is when these people disappear off the street. And most of them don't disappear up, they disappear down into the ground and away. Because if you don't save yourself, no one else is coming. You need to find it within yourself to save yourself. So your security is your responsibility. So one of the things I talk to guys about, when men talk about marriage and stuff, we talk about, the commitments that you are supposed to be making as a husband to your wife, right? What are those commitments? Does anybody know? Type it into the chat. There's 4 primary commitments to marriage. Can anybody give me one of them? Let's see. I'll put a 10-second timer. I don't know if the 3 people that are in here are going to engage in it, but we'll give you 10 seconds to type out what you think one of them is. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay. All right. Warlord. What's up, bro? Yeah, absolutely. Providing protection. There's 2 others. And both of those are 2 of them. Right? Do we got any others? Basic tenets, the basic promise that a man is making when he takes on a wife. All right, let's go over them. Protect, provide, provision for a lifetime, die for if necessary. Those are the commitments you make to a wife, right? So protect means that you are responsible for the safety of both you and her, right? Provide means that you are doing the work necessary to cover the expense of the life you and this woman are living together. Provision means to provide for the future. It means that the things that you guys are going to need in the future, you're responsible for making sure you guys have them. And then die for if necessary means that if it comes to it, your life goes up ahead of hers. Okay. To keep these promises, even if it costs you your life, that is your commitment as her husband. Right. And that's a pretty serious commitment, right? I mean, that's a pretty serious commitment. In fact, I can't think of a more significant commitment than that. Even if you have children, that is not your commitment to your children, because your children one day grow up. And when your children grow up, they leave the house, they get married, right? Gail, how you doing? Right. When the children grow up, they get married, they have families of their own. And if you have a daughter, her protection becomes responsibility of her husband. If you have a son, then he becomes responsible for his own protection. So even your children, you're not making the level of commitment that you make to your wife. The commitment you make to your wife is the absolute highest commitment that a man can make to any other living sentient being on the planet. There's no greater commitment than a man's ring. And this is important for you guys to understand, fellas, because if you're a man and you're about something, then giving your commitment to a woman is the most valuable thing you have to give her, right? That's the most valuable thing that you have to give her. And that's why your commitment should mean something. That's why loyalty and integrity and all of these things mean something, because all of them speak to the value of your commitment, right? If you're somebody who quits, if you're somebody who lies, if you're somebody who runs around, if you're somebody who's not honest and can't be loyal, then it degrades the value and the quality of the commitment of your ring. And your ring needs to be the highest possible commitment, of the highest possible quality, of the highest possible caliber that can exist. That's what it needs to be. That's what your commitment needs to be, right? So we got the four things, right? For marriage: protect, provide, provision for a lifetime, die for if necessary. It is the greatest commitment a man can make to any other living being. And the commitment you give that to is a woman. That's who you give that commitment to, right? So, hey, and listen, if you're part of LGBTQIA space or whatever, and you're on the spectrum, no problem. Good for you. This isn't a conversation I'm having, with you. I don't know the dynamics of those relationships. That's why I'm not speaking on them. So if you feel that you are being excluded, right, then you can sit in, learn, whatever, but this conversation isn't for you. I don't have any experience in that realm. And so I'm not here to try to teach about that. So, so you said that is not masochist. How do you develop masculine frame that is not masochist? Okay. So I want you to define for me what you mean when you say masochist, because masochist is somebody who desires like you or gets some type of pleasure out of being hurt. And I don't think that giving a high level commitment to another person is a desire to hurt yourself on their behalf, or to take pleasure in being hurt. So a masculine frame in and of itself is empowering. It's empowering. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Let me tell you something. You taking responsibility for something, okay, gives you power. That gives you power. When you refuse to take responsibility for something, it depowers you, right? If if somebody else needs to do something for you to get onto the right path, then that depowers you. But if you can take responsibility for a fault or a failure or a misstep or a mishap, then that means that you can get right the moment you decide to get right. You're not waiting on your dad to apologize for not being there. You're not waiting for your mom to apologize for, you know, all the madness in the home. You're not waiting on anybody to do anything. You have taken responsibility for your faults, your failures, and now you are taking whatever steps are necessary for you to move forward. So, uh, masculine frame is about taking responsibility. The base premise of masculine frame is personal responsibility. That is the root through which all of the tree grows. It is the fountain through which the elixir of that flows through. That is the fountain through which it comes through. Okay. And so again, masculine frame. First thing, you are responsible for your own protection. Okay. That's number one. All right. Now, I tell people that you can't really offer protection to a wife or to yourself unless you're proficient in protecting yourself. And I believe that every man needs to learn the basic tenets of defending himself and self-defense, right? And so what does that mean? Right? To me, that means you need to be able to use your hands. That means you need to be able to use a blade, right? That means you need to be able to use a firearm, or a handgun. You need to be able to use a rifle, and you need to be able to use a shotgun. You got to be able to use the tools that are necessary for you to protect yourself. Period. In. Got to learn it. Got to go out, do some training. Got to find some place to be where somebody's willing to teach you the basic tenets of hand-to-hand combat. If you're a man and you don't know how to throw a straight punch, if you're a man and you don't know the basics of defending yourself, if you're a man, somebody gets you on the ground and your goose is cooked, then that is on you. It is your responsibility to make sure that if you don't have a man who is mentoring you, a father figure that teaches you how to throw a straight punch, right? How to cover, right? How to defend yourself, right? Then you need to go out and find that, right? Because again, the root of masculine frame is personal responsibility, right? It's personal responsibility. Okay. So next, the second part of masculine frame is you are responsible for your own happiness. Nobody else on the planet was put here to make you happy. Not a woman, not a man, not your children. They're here for their own sake, right? Nobody is here to make you happy. You need to figure out the things that motivate you. You need to figure out the things that are making you sad. Your mental health is your responsibility. Your happiness is your responsibility. Again, nobody is coming to save you. You have to accept that if you are a man. Okay. It's not your wife's responsibility. It's not your friend's responsibility. It's nobody's responsibility to make sure that you have the things that you need and want in your life to make you happy. That is up to you, right? That is part of your journey. Okay. And so oftentimes people have a sense of entitlement. They talk about what somebody owes them. right? They feel that their wife owes them this, their husband owes them that, their friends owe them this. Nobody owes you shit. I'm just going to tell you, spoiler alert, okay? Spoiler alert. Nobody owes you shit. And if you go through life feeling that people owe you, let me tell you what my mama used to tell me. She used to say, as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. And what that meant was, whatever you think I owe you, it ain't coming. So you need to get over it. Nobody owes you your happiness. Nobody is there. Everybody's the main character in their own lives. Everybody is the main character in their own lives. And in somebody else's story, the purpose that their script of life was wrote out was not to make you happy. You need to make yourself happy. Now, the thing is you have often a lot of people who they come to understand that fact, and then they make the mistake of putting their own happiness at the top of the priority for their decision making. And people who where happiness is at the top of the hierarchy of their decision making, those people are called hedonists. And hedonists are dangerous because they don't honor commitments. They don't believe in duty. They don't believe in commitment and responsibility. They don't. They believe in their own happiness. That's why you have all these women nowadays who they get divorced, and what do they say? I wasn't happy. Was he beating you? Nope, I wasn't happy. Was he cheating on you? Nope, I wasn't happy. He wasn't talking to me enough. He didn't spend enough time with me. He didn't give me a sense of fulfillment in life, right? And these women who are hedonists are dangerous. Men who are hedonists are dangerous. These are people that can justify doing anything to anybody because of what makes them happy. It makes me happy. I wasn't happy. That's not a motivation. That's not an excuse to break commitments. That's not an excuse to not meet obligations. That's not an excuse to fail as it pertains to your duties. Period and full stop. Right there. But your happiness is your responsibility. It just doesn't go at the top of the hierarchy. Okay. The third piece of masculine frame, and this is the most important piece. That's why I saved it for last. You're responsible for doing the work necessary to cover the expense of your own life. Okay. You want to drive that car, you need to be able to afford the payments on it and the insurance on it. You don't live in that place, you need to be responsible. You need to be able to do the work that's necessary to cover the rent or the mortgage on that place. You are responsible for covering the expense of your own life and whatever work is necessary to do that. And that's since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of time, when before people were even living in wigwams, they had to go and build the wigwam. They had to do the work that was necessary to live where they lived. They need to do the work that was necessary to eat what they ate. That has not changed. We've come up with these systems of monetization, money, and you go out and you work for money, and then you can trade the money for all of the duties, responsibility, and work that you would have had to do to live in the house you live in, or to build the car that you drive, or to maintain it. You can exchange the money for other people who have skills. This is how economy works, right? But going to obtain whatever the currency is of the system that you are in and doing whatever work is necessary to meet that, that is your responsibility. And when you hear folks who are sitting up and they're talking about, what are they talking about? They're talking about basal income, that the government should be paying for their food or paying for their housing, or that the government owes them an education and they should pay for their education. I think that the government has a responsibility to regulate these things to make sure that we aren't being gouged. But I don't think the government has a responsibility to cover the expense for a person, right? The government has a responsibility to make sure the market spaces that people are engaging in so that they can buy food and water and shelter and have an education and be able to become productive, members of society. I believe that the government has a right to regulate those markets, right? However, they don't have the right to, they aren't supposed to pay for you to get those things. You need to do whatever work that is. If that's working 60 or 70 hours a week, if that's working 80 hours a week, I'm sorry. It is what it is. You need to develop skills then that you can bring to market that you can trade access to those skills within you for money on the time that you would be happy with spending to get that money. And so if you're somebody where you got to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week so that you can live in a 1-bedroom apartment and it's a dead end job where there's no true opportunity for advancement, that pressure that you experience is meant to be there to get you to step up. It's meant to be there so that you develop higher skills and so that you evolve. And when you remove that pressure, then you remove the need for people to learn, to evolve, to grow, to learn different skills and become better versions of themselves. And I'm gonna tell you something, we all owe that to ourselves. You owe that to yourself. So you are responsible for doing the work that is necessary to cover the expense of your own life. Now, here's the difference between men and women. Women get to share these responsibilities with men. When you're a child, the responsibility of your protection, the responsibility of your happiness, the responsibility of covering the expense of your own life, you get to share that with that's your parents' responsibility in full. Right? It's the job of a parent to give the child the information necessary so that when they cross the line into adulthood, they can then do these things for themselves. But that is very different for women. When they cross the line into adulthood, they get to share the responsibility that their parents covered in full with the husband. And so you have women who complain about 50-50, right? Now, I had a stay-at-home wife for a decade. I paid all the bills, right? I worked, paid all the bills. We had a nice suburban life, some nice cars, BMW, shit like that. I did all the work that was necessary to cover the expense of all those things, right? Now, you have women who are complaining because they have to do 50% of the work necessary to have whatever lifestyle they have. They don't understand that for a man, his base operating system is that he is 100% responsible. He's 100% responsible. You guys, typically, when you marry, the lifestyle is not set up where if the wife stops working, then the entire home crumbles. That's not typically how it works. Where if the woman stops working, then the lifestyle crumbles, right? The lifestyle is normally set up in a way where the man's income is going to be able to sustain you guys, and then the woman's income, even if she is contributing to some bills and things of that nature, is going towards maybe a plan for trips or for towards you guys' retirement. It might be part of the provisional plan, but the providing plan to cover the necessary expenses of the life that you guys are living in that moment, the man is 9 times out of 10 he's taking responsibility for that. So women, they have a very different approach. Their frame is very different than that of a man, because the man's masculine frame states he is responsible for doing whatever work is necessary to cover the life. The woman, she gets help with all of these things. Society doesn't look down on any woman for having a man who completely supplements the cost of her life. And if you're a married woman, or if you're a woman and you've ever been in a relationship, you can't tell me that you didn't think your protection was your man's responsibility. I don't believe it for a second. You know that if somebody say something crazy to you, you expect your man to slap him in the mouth. That's what you expect. You expect for your man to step up first in between you and whatever danger is happening, or to grab you and secure you. That's what you're expecting. You offload the responsibility of your security onto your significant other as a woman. Even if you haven't been taught to do this, y'all do it naturally. That's the female frame is completely different than the masculine frame in that way. And then not only that, because of the much more emotional nature of the woman, she automatically offloads her happiness onto the man. She believes that it is the man's responsibility to keep her happy. And when women are unhappy, if they're in a relationship, they don't think to themselves, hey, I'm unhappy because I am deficient. They say, I am unhappy because the relationship is deficient. The man is insufficient. I need a man that's going to make me feel better about myself, make me feel better about this, that, and the third. The woman doesn't think that her unhappiness is coming from her own insufficiency, from her own deficit. She believes 9 times out of 10, if she's in a relationship, that is coming from a man. Even single women think that their unhappiness is coming from men. Call me a lie. Call me a lie. Single women, they believe that their unhappiness is not because I'm out of shape. My happiness is not because I don't have any hobbies that I'm truly investing myself in. You have women who sit up and stare into a mirror and play with their face for an hour a day, painting on makeup and shit. And that's how they're spending their time. And it hasn't occurred to them in the slightest bit that the unhappiness that they're experiencing in their life is because of the relationship they have with their self, and not because of lack of a relationship with the man or the relationship that they're in. And so what a woman does first to try to become happy is she gets a new man. She gets a new man. She thinks the problem is the guy. That's what happens. I don't that guys don't do that. If a man is unhappy, he doesn't think the problem, the thing that's making him unhappy in his life, especially if it's a woman that's behaving, he doesn't say to himself, the reason I'm unhappy is because she ain't good enough. Not what he does. Women automatically offload the responsibility of their happiness onto the man. It is natural, right? But masculine frame states you are responsible for your own happiness, my man, right? So these are the three basic tenets of masculine frame, okay? You're responsible for your own happiness. You are responsible for your own safety. You're responsible for doing the work necessary to cover the expense of your own life. Now, a lot of guys, they don't know that they're on this journey of taking on these responsibilities. They don't find it out until very later and much later in life. And there's three reasons that guys make it to manhood and don't have this information. One is that they grow up in a home where the father is an emasculated father, and he's the emasculated man. The emasculated man is the man who has no authority in his own home. He's got a woman who dominates him, punks him, talks shit to him. She's loud, she's aggressive. She thinks she's sticking up for herself, right? This is something that happens when you marry the modern woman or you marry a feminist. You marry a woman who rejects the natural hierarchy of God, man, woman, child, and she believes we're going to be partners, we're going to be 50-50, or I'm in charge because he's stupid. I love him, but I want him. I don't need him, right? When you marry these women, then you demonstrate to your children the emasculated man. And then your sons grow up and they too go out into the world and aren't able to perform and compete because they don't understand the level of responsibility that they have in their own lives. All right. So that's archetype, home archetype number one that produces men who don't know and don't have this information. The second one is the abusive father, right? So this, you have a dad in the home, right? But he is meting out abuse. Now, maybe he's abusive to the mom. Maybe he's abusive to you. Maybe he is neglectful. And the trauma that he's given everybody is the trauma of neglect. It is a lack of engagement, right? He's not teaching, right? Because in your home, if you're a man in your home, you are responsible for setting the rules and making sure everybody understands what the rules of the home is and making sure that the kids understand what society is going to expect from them. This is why structure is so important. You give the rules of the home, that creates the structure, and then you inform the kids about the structure and expectations the world is going to have of them when they go out into the world. The mom, she does what? She nurtures, loves, and supports. So she tells the child, hey, you're great. You're a king. You're a queen. Everything you do. That's why they say this phrase. You ever heard this? You got a face only your mother could love, right? That's because your mom's going to love you no matter what. She ain't gonna tell you the truth. She's gonna tell you what you need to know so that you can be filled up and have confidence in yourself to go out into the world and compete. And that's why another reason why women are so important, right? However, the father brings something different to that table. He gives you accountability, responsibility, structure, discipline, right? He helps you to develop good boundaries and set expectations for yourself and standards for the world, understand what the world is going to expect of you. The dad gives you all the mental schema so that you can go out into the world and meet the challenge of a human life, right? And that's why you have so many kids when they're raised by the mothers. What are they? They're failure to launch. What's a failure to launch? A failure to launch is a man who has reached physical maturity but has not embraced his manhood. So he's still living with his mama, right? Or he's perpetually in school, right? He never gets out of school and applies what he's learned. He never finishes anything, right? He's living with his mama. He's a failure to launch, right? So again, this is something that is very, very, very important to understand. And this is how young men end up making it to adulthood and missing this information. They have the emasculated father, or they have the father that is neglectful or abusive, right? In the abusive way, it works like this. You watch your dad abuse your mom, right? And so because of that, you don't want to become him. So you reject your own manhood because you think part and parcel of your manhood is unregulated, unrestrained aggression. So you have a lot of guys where they don't understand what that aggression was supposed to be. Aggression, aggression is a natural dimension of manhood. It is, but it's supposed to be tempered with restraint. And aggression that is tempered by restraint becomes protection for women and children, your family. That's what it's supposed to be. All men are supposed to be aggressive. We're supposed to have that within us, but we are supposed to have restraint. And that restraint turns that aggression into protection for women and children. We are larger than women, right? That's because we're not supposed to compete with them. They're supposed to cooperate with us. We were made larger than them so we can protect them, not so that we can control and abuse them using that size and that advantage that was given to us by God. It's not why you're here, bro. Sorry. If you're using your size or how deep and loud your voice goes to control, intimidate, and punish your woman, then you are outside of your masculine frame. You ain't supposed to be fighting with no women, bro. Sorry. Nope. No. All right. The third home structure that creates the man who has no clue about his masculine frame is the single mother household. You are obviously being brought up with no man to demonstrate what masculine frame is and to show you what it is like to be a man and to meet the responsibilities that the world gives to you and the expectations that are intrinsic to being within that frame as a man. So you have a lot of young men, especially nowadays, where single baby mama culture is something that we're pushing as a society, right? You single, you're independent, you don't need a man. What happens when you tell women you're single, you're independent, you don't need a man? You want a man, you don't need a man. Body count doesn't matter. Marriage isn't the goal, right? What happens when you tell a group of women that? They go out and have random sex. That's what happens. And what happens when you have a community of women who are screwing anything that they want to? You get children nobody wants. That's what happens. You get children nobody wants, because guess what? Getting pregnant by a guy doesn't make the guy turn into a responsible man. If he hasn't accepted all of these types of things that I'm talking to you about, this guy isn't about to turn around just because you said, hey, I'm keeping it, and all of a sudden turn into fucking daddy of the year. That's not what's going to happen. Sorry. So a lot of these ladies, they get upset because the man doesn't want to step up and become a man because they don't understand change is hard. Change is hard. It's intentional, right? It's something that you do at a great effort and expense to yourself to break the habits that you have, right? Break all the psychological and mental schema that is breeding around the bad habits that you have, and change who it is that you are. That's not something you do just because you have a baby. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. Especially if you're dealing with a man who grew up and was raised by a baby mama. He don't think it's a big deal. He don't, because he watched his mama do it. So he's like, they're going to be fine. Nope. She want to keep the baby. Ain't got nothing to do with me. So again, as men, right, you have a lot of men who end up not getting this information. And the reason they don't get this information is because they grew up in one of three archetypes: the emasculated man, the abusive man, or the single mother. And the one that is most dominant, that we see producing the most, is a single mother. We're seeing less and less nuclear homes, nuclear families, and seeing more women getting pregnant by irresponsible men, keeping the child, and then blaming men in general because they like to screw irresponsible men with no condom, no protection. They don't see themselves as irresponsible women. I'm going to tell you something. Part of the reason women struggle with accountability, responsibility, is because there's a dynamic within society that excuses female emotion. It allows women to use their emotion as an excuse for bad behavior. If you're a guy and you got mad, you still going to jail. If you a guy and your feelings was hurt, you still lost your job, man. If you're a guy and you were upset, that cannot be the impetus for any bad choice, and nobody's going to give you a second chance based off of that. When you look at the numbers of how sentencing is meted out, right? You see that men get 60% worse sentencing for the same crimes. Why? Because a woman's emotionality is a legitimate reason for bad behavior among women. It is not for men. I'm going to tell you something. Nobody is coming to save you, young man. You need to save yourself. And so nobody cares about your feelings and nobody cares about your emotions. I'm not complaining about that. I'm not saying that to try to make you feel bad or anything like that. Let me tell you something. We have less emotions than women do. It's not that we have actual less emotions, that we don't experience them to the depth that women do over the stuff that they do, right? I've asked this question for years and years and years. I'll ask women, I say, hey, how many times have you been watching a show, watching a commercial, had a memory, saw something that was nostalgic or made you feel emotional to the extent where it almost made you want to cry? How often does that happen to you a week? And women will tell me, oh, it happens to me almost every day. I see something that makes me feel a little sentimental and I almost cry, right? Women will say that happens every day. You want to know something, ladies? You know how often this happens to men? You know how often a man experiences something that's sentimental or nostalgic and it makes him almost want to cry? You know how often that happens to a man? Maybe once every 3 months, maybe once every 6 months, maybe once a year. We do not have the same emotional palette that you guys do. Let me tell you something. If the average guy had to experience the emotions that the average woman experienced, if he had a week to experience them, what she feels in a day, he would blow his brains out by Wednesday. He'd be like, I can't do this no more. I'm out, right? The guys don't have the same chemicals in their body driving the highs and lows, the emotional volatility that women experience. Women got these two chemicals in their body, estrogen, progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone drive 5 things: anxiety, neuroticism, depression, emotional volatility, and neuroticism. Neuroticism is negative self-talk. That's what that is. Women think like 1,000 more words a day or 2,000 more words or more ideas a day than a man does. And those ideas are mostly all negative. Imagine if you experience a fourth more ideas, 25% more ideas in your mind, and they were all negative, talking shit to yourself about yourself. That's what women are experiencing. It's their natural state. It's being driven by the hormone, estrogen, progesterone. I had a buddy of mine. I used to fight. And he was somebody who decided to go from being a man to a woman. So this is a transgender guy. And he started taking a hormone treatment, the estrogen, all of that stuff. He would sit in his car and cry. And I asked him about it. I was like, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I just can't control myself. He just sit in his car and cry. I watched him sign his name was, hands was shaking like this. The hormones that a woman has in her body, let me tell you something. As men, we ain't meant to deal with that shit. We are not. It's not natural to us. Now, for guys, we got a different hormone in us. Okay. We have testosterone. We got 20 times the amount of testosterone in our body than women have. Now, both men and women have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. We all have this stuff, but we got it in different amounts. Women got 20 times the amount of estrogen, or 15 times the amount of estrogen and progesterone a man has, and men have 20 times the amount of testosterone that a woman has. And testosterone drives in men 3 primary things: aggression. It's natural to men. We're supposed to be aggressive. We're just supposed to control it. Libido. We all know about that, fellas, right? Once that libido kicks in, we're 13, 14 years old, right? We want to go to the bathroom and pull that thing out by the root at least 2 or 3 times a day, right? But you have to learn how to control it. And then the third thing is competition. And when you as a man don't have another man to walk you across that line, when your testosterone kicks in and you go through male puberty, if you don't have another man to teach you to restrain your aggression, you become hyperviolent. And that's why you see these young men who are raised by single mothers, they grow up, they have nobody helping them. And so they become hyperviolent. That's what ends up happening to these guys. Then also restraint when it comes to your libido. You end up being hypersexual. If you don't have somebody who teaches you, hey, let me tell you something, man, every time you shoot off one of them rockets, the same energy that you use to complete your homework or to clean your room up or to work towards your goals, you're the same energy you use for that, you're shooting it out all over the floor. You're shooting it out all over into the sink, wherever you shoot it. You're singing and shooting it out into the shower, right? That's where that energy, the same energy that you use to build and create your life, that is creative energy, is the same energy that you are dispelling when you go ahead and release. So you have to approach it with some restraint. You can't do it every day. You can't do it all the time, right? Not if you're going to be a serious person. You can't be sitting up, pulling the thing out by the root. The Greeks, they got a word for it. They call you a malaka. A malaka is somebody who has literally masturbated their own brain into mush. They ruined their life because they set up and they fail to launch. They just play with themselves instead of doing the things that they need to do, right? This is something that all cultures recognize, right? Men recognize it. If you can't get out your own way, if you can't get some mastery and some control over your libido, you will not accomplish much in life. The third thing is competition. That's the third piece. And you need a man to walk you across the line on that, because guess what? It's easier to cheat. To accomplish what you want, it's easier to cheat. It is. It's easier to cheat. And so if you don't have a man that helps you to develop a moral code, if you don't have somebody who helps you to develop a system of honor for you to judge and evaluate your actions to, you're still going to have a desire to compete. And when you go out to compete, you'll cheat. You'll cheat because you don't understand how important it is to win it the right way, right? You don't understand how important it is, if you want to be able to do business and be respected by other men, that other men can take your word and that it means something, that your handshake means something, that your word means something, that your commitment means something, right? You need other men to teach you that, to demonstrate that in front of you, to explain the importance of it to you, and to help to temper your desire to compete. So men have three things that are being driven by that testosterone: competition, libido, and aggression. And you need other men to explain to you how to deal with those things, because it's being driven by hormones, ladies. It's different. I know you ladies want to compete, right? I know you ladies get horny. You got a libido. I know you ladies feel aggression. It's different. It ain't the same. It's a hormone driving it. It's a hormone driving it. You guys have seen other ladies cross the puberty line, and when you guys get the estrogen, progesterone, and your feelings and your emotions, and a girl, she gets more emotional. What do you say? You say she can't help it. She can't help it. Y'all excuse each other's behavior that's being driven by your hormones. You understand that she can't help it. It's something that's happening to her brain because of her hormones. You accept that. You don't accept that men have something that's happening to them too, because you don't understand. You don't understand men. You don't. And that's why you can't raise them. That's why you can't raise them. I'm going to give you guys an analogy, and I'm going to go ahead and close this down because I got some steaks we're going to be cooking and eating. I'm over to my buddy's house. But I wanted to hop on because he had the setup and the camera and all this, that, and the other, and make some content. All right. So here's what you got. All right. The way that men and women experience the world is far different. Okay. Think of it like a police station. You know how when they take somebody and they're going to interrogate them, they put them into that room and they sit at that table. And at that table in that room, they can look around them and they see the mirror on the wall. And that mirror on the wall, what does it show? It shows a reflection of themselves. That's what they see. They can see their room, and when they look in the mirror that leads to another room, all they see is the reflection of themselves. That's the room women are in. Men are in a different room. Men are in the room with where they can see through the mirror and look. So we can see what's happening on the woman's side, and we can see the room we're in. The male experience is we can see how women are treated. We know that they have different expectations, that the world treats them differently. We know that they are emotional. We know these things. We know there's certain things you can't say to a woman because she's going to react. You're going to trigger her. She's going to this, that, blah, 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 blah. We get it. We know. We have to learn about y'all. We have to see what's going on in y'all room. But women, y'all don't understand the male room. You ain't never been in there. You ain't never been in there. Society don't have the same expectations of you that they have of me. You can use your emotions, which are being driven by your hormones, and everybody understands that and accepts that. You can use your emotions are an excuse for bad behavior sometimes. And because of that, you get a pass. And that's okay. That's the world we live in. I ain't complaining about it. But if you're a man and nobody explains this to you, and you grow up with your mama's emotionality because you didn't grow up around no men, you grow up thinking that the world owes you understanding, that the world owes you something, that you're entitled to a pass, those men end up in jail. Those men end up in a grave. Those men end up in a wheelchair. Those men end up in a hospital. Those men end up strapped to a bed, right? Those men don't perform and compete the way that they're supposed to because their expectations of reality are based off of the room the woman is in. They don't understand the room that they're born in. And when they find out that the world isn't going to give them understanding based off their emotionality, they're mad about it. And men like this are dangerous. They create chaos. Let me tell you something. Emotional men create chaos. They're dangerous because they have the emotional volatility of a woman and the strength of a man. That is a problem, right? We can see that's a problem. The world is not safer with more emotional men. Men need to have emotional stoicism. And what that means is that as a man, your decision making cannot be based off your emotions. It must be based off your best thinking. Your decision making needs to be based off your best thinking. It cannot be based off your emotions. It cannot. The world will not accept that from you. They will punish you accordingly. But a woman, women are different. They get to they get to make choices and decisions based off their feelings. That's just the way the world is, baby. Don't be mad at me. Take it up with the creator. And so for me, what I do is I inform men of the lay of the land. I'm not trying to complain about it. I'm not bitching about it. I don't wish it would change. I don't think it should be any different. But if you don't know the lay of the land, you can't play the game to win. You can't play the game to win. And so that's what this video is about, masculine frame. So what do we go over, right? What are the 4 commitments of a husband? Protect, provide, provision for a lifetime, die for if necessary. What are the 3 commitments of masculine frame? 1, you're responsible for your own happiness. 2, you're responsible for your own protection. 3, you're responsible for doing the work that's necessary to cover the expense of your own life. Women are different. Women get to share the responsibility of all those 3 things with their parents as they grow up and then their husband when they become adults. Society will accept that from them, right? If you're a woman and you don't work a New York minute and earn a wooden nickel and you got a man that protects and provides for you, no person's going to look down on you. In fact, other women will look up to you. But if you're a man and you living off of a woman, you driving around her Altima, right? Eating her kids' snacks at night and shit, nobody thinks you are a man. You are a loser, right? And then we talked about failure to launch, right? Reaching physical maturity as a man does not make you a man. If you don't accept your masculine frame and get out into the world so that you can cover the expense of your own life, you are a failure to launch. Reaching physical maturity does not make you a man. Accepting your masculine frame does. Boom. That's what I got for you guys, right? Like, share the content, get it out there. Let's keep having these conversations as men. And ladies, I love that you guys come in here and we talk and that you guys are able to witness these conversations and stuff like that. But I plan on making more content on YouTube. I want to tell you guys I got a show on Roku. Roku offered us a contract, me and some other creators on TikTok. Because most of my content is on TikTok. Follow me at Basically Black Jesus and Basically Black Jesus 2 on TikTok. But Roku offered us a show. And so me and a guy named Evans, the confidence coach, and another guy named Black Guru, we are going to be doing a live show twice a week. We're doing, and it's going to be on the Roku app. And so you have to sign up for a subscription to that app. If you own a Roku television, you should be able to find it as under the channel for Roku. Okay. So, anyways, look for us there. Come engage in the content. Let's keep the conversation going. Right. That content's going to be more on mating, dating, marriage, and relationships. The content that I do on YouTube is more about male mentorship and us as men kind of sharing meaningful, intelligent standards about how to meet the challenges of our own existence. Right. And just kind of getting guys to line up, accept responsibility for who and what we are, right? So that we can step up as leaders in our homes, for our kids, right? And for the women who trust us enough to give us their submission, right? There you go. So I appreciate you guys. I loved having this conversation. Feel free to reach out to me. And, you guys are free to comment underneath this video as well if you have questions about any of this stuff. And it was great chatting with you all. You all have a great night. All right. Thanks. Let's see.